What you're seeing comes from a phone recovered during a missing person investigation. The hiker who recorded this never made it out of the forest. His camera shows something following him for days, a dogman walking upright, keeping pace just out of sight. The footage captures massive tracks, broken trees, and finally the dogman itself, standing on two legs and staring into the camera. This is the last recorded evidence of a man being hunted. So before we continue, make sure you subscribe and let us know where you're watching from. Thanks. There's a phone sitting in an evidence locker, somewhere that contains footage nobody wants you to see. The phone belonged to someone who went hiking in the fall of last year and never came back. His vehicle was found at a trailhead in a remote section of forest, keys still in the ignition, wallet and camping permit visible on the dashboard. Search teams combed the area for weeks. They found nothing. No body, no campsite, no trail of breadcrumbs leading to what happened to him. The case went cold after about 3 months. Family held a memorial service. Friends posted tributes online. Life moved on the way it does when someone vanishes without explanation. Then a park maintenance worker found the phone wedged between rocks near a stream, about 2 miles off any marked trail. The case was cracked, screen was shattered, but when they plugged it in back at the ranger station, the thing powered right up. What they found on that phone changed everything about the search. There were 42 video files, time-stamped over a 4-day period, documenting what was supposed to be a routine solo backpacking trip. The first videos show exactly what you'd expect. Trail views, sunset shots, the hiker talking to the camera about his route and his gear. Standard outdoor content that could have been posted to any hiking channel online. But the later videos show something else entirely. Something that made the lead investigator call in federal authorities within hours of viewing the footage. The hiker was someone who'd been doing this for years. Late 20s, worked an office job during the week, spent every weekend he could in the backcountry. His friends said he was meticulous about trip planning, always filed his routes with the Park Service, always brought more supplies than he needed. He'd hiked this particular region at least a dozen times before, knew the trails well enough to navigate them in the dark if he had to. But this trip was different. He'd mentioned to a coworker that he wanted to explore some areas deeper in the forest, sections he'd never been to before, parts where the trails thinned out and eventually disappeared into wilderness that hadn't seen a human footprint in years. He always traveled alone, said he found something peaceful about solo trips, liked the challenge of being completely self-reliant. His pack was always too heavy with camera equipment, multiple batteries, external hard drives for storing footage. He documented everything, every trail marker, every scenic overlook, every interesting plant or rock formation. It was part of why his disappearance was so strange. Someone that careful, that prepared, that experienced doesn't just vanish. The family reported him missing when he didn't show up for work on Monday. The trip was supposed to be 4 days, Friday through Monday morning. His employer said it wasn't like him to miss work without calling. His apartment showed no signs that he'd ever made it home. Search teams found his vehicle within hours. It was parked legally at the northern trailhead, permit properly displayed, nothing disturbed. Inside they found his registration, insurance papers, an empty coffee thermos. Everything you'd expect from someone who just started a hike. The trail he'd indicated on his permit led into an area of old-growth forest, dense canopy. Terrain that got progressively more difficult the deeper you went. Rangers followed the trail for miles, checking every campsite, every water source, every spot where someone might reasonably stop for the night. They found nothing. Not a tent, not a fire ring, not a single piece of trash or evidence that he'd passed through. The search expanded over the following weeks. Helicopter flyovers, canine units, volunteers walking grid patterns through the forest. They checked every drainage, every ravine, every place where an injured hiker might have ended up. Nothing. It was like he'd walked into the forest and simply ceased to exist. The search was officially called off after 5 weeks. The family continued to hope, continued to check online forums, and follow up on potential sightings. But deep down, everyone knew. People don't survive 5 weeks in the wilderness without proper shelter and supplies. Whatever happened to him, it happened early in his trip, before he had a chance to signal for help or make his way back to civilization. The phone turned up 6 months later by pure chance. The maintenance worker was clearing debris from a drainage area near a stream crossing when he spotted something metallic wedged between 2 boulders. The phone was in bad shape. Water damage had corroded some of the internal components. The screen was spider-webbed with cracks. The case had dents and scratches like it had taken a serious impact. But the memory card inside was intact. When they managed to extract it and transfer the files, they found themselves looking at the last 4 days of the hiker's life, documented in excruciating detail. 42 videos, ranging from 30 seconds to almost 10 minutes long, showing his trip from optimistic beginning to terrifying end. The first 8 videos are completely normal. Day 1 starts with him loading his pack into his vehicle, checking his gear list, showing off the new sleeping bag he'd bought for the trip. He's excited, talking about how perfect the weather forecast looks, how he's been planning this route for months. The drive to the trailhead, the hike in, everything is textbook. He films the trail markers, points out interesting trees, narrates his progress like he's making content for an outdoor adventure show. The forest looks beautiful in the early autumn light, leaves just starting to turn, temperature perfect for hiking. He makes good time to his first planned campsite, sets up his tent with practiced efficiency, hangs his food bag properly to keep it away from bears. Video 7 shows him cooking dinner, talking about how good it feels to be out in the woods again, away from screens and deadlines and all the noise of regular life. He mentions that the forest is quieter than usual, but doesn't seem concerned about it. Just notes that he hasn't heard many birds or seen much wildlife. Says maybe the seasonal migration patterns are off this year, or maybe he's just deeper in the forest than he's been before. The sunset video is gorgeous. He films the sky through the trees, the light filtering through the canopy, the way shadows stretch across his campsite. He seems completely relaxed, completely at ease. The last video of day 1 shows him securing his camp for the night, double-checking that everything is properly stored, making sure his flashlight and knife are within easy reach inside the tent. Standard wilderness precautions. Nothing suggesting he has any concerns about his safety. Day 2 is when things start to change. The morning video shows him emerging from his tent, and right away you can tell something's off. His campsite isn't how he left it. Small items that were neatly arranged the night before are scattered. His cooking pot, which he'd left on a rock to dry, is on the ground several feet away. Dirt near his tent has been disturbed, scratched up like something heavy dragged across it. He comments on it casually at first, figures maybe a raccoon came through during the night, though he notes that raccoons don't usually get into properly secured campsites. He walks around the perimeter, filming the ground, and that's when he finds the tracks. He examines the disturbance more carefully now, the camera close to the ground. You can see how methodically he works, years of outdoor experience showing in the way he reads the signs. The scratches in the dirt aren't random. They're organized, deliberate, like something was testing the tent material, probing for weaknesses. One of his tent stakes has been pulled partially out of the ground, not broken or ripped, but carefully extracted about halfway, like something was seeing how much force it would take to remove it completely. That detail bothers him. You can hear it in his voice as he narrates what he's seeing. Animals don't test tent stakes. They either ignore them or destroy them, trying to get at food. This is something different. His water bottles, which he'd left lined up next to his pack, have been moved. Not knocked over or scattered, but repositioned. Stood upright in a different location, like something had picked them up and set them down somewhere else. He films this detail extensively, the camera lingering on the bottles, showing how they're arranged in a neat row, but several feet from where he'd left them. His commentary is more concerned now. Says this doesn't match any animal behavior he's familiar with. Bears are messy. Raccoons knock things over. Mountain lions don't care about water bottles at all. Whatever came through his camp during the night was curious about human objects, interacting with them in ways that suggest understanding rather than just animal investigation. The footage shows prints in soft dirt near his tent. They're not bear tracks. Bears leave five-toed prints, but these are different. The shape is wrong. The stride pattern is wrong. He kneels down next to one, uses his hand for scale. The print is massive, easily twice the size of his palm, and it shows 5 toes, but with what look like claw marks extending forward. What's most disturbing is the spacing between the prints. They're not the close-together pattern you'd see from a 4-legged animal. They're spaced like something was walking upright, on 2 legs, with a stride that suggests something tall and heavy. He follows them for a bit, keeping the camera rolling. The tracks lead away from his camp, into the trees, and eventually disappear where the ground gets too hard to hold impressions. He's treating it like an interesting discovery at this point. Speculates about what could have made the tracks, runs through possibilities out loud. Mentions that the shape doesn't match anything he's seen before. Considers that maybe it's a deformed bear or some kind of hybrid animal, though he admits that doesn't really make sense. He takes multiple photos of the tracks from different angles, measures them carefully, documents everything like someone who wants to be able to prove what he's seen when he gets back to civilization. Then he mentions the silence. The forest is completely quiet. No bird calls, no insects, no wind noise. Just dead silence pressing in from all sides. He jokes nervously about it, says it's probably nothing, but you can hear the uncertainty creeping into his voice. He takes his time breaking camp that morning. The video shows him packing slowly, methodically, checking everything twice. His narration is more subdued now. He mentions that the tracks have got him thinking, wondering if maybe he should cut the trip short, head back early. But then he talks himself out of it. Says he's been hiking for years, has encountered bears and mountain lions before, knows how to handle wildlife. Says whatever made those tracks was probably just passing through, that it's already miles away by now. He convinces himself there's nothing to worry about. Decides to continue with his planned route, pushing deeper into the forest toward areas he's never explored before. The afternoon videos from day 2 show him hiking a ridge trail, still documenting the scenery, but clearly more alert now. He keeps the camera pointed ahead most of the time, but every so often he'll turn it back the way he came, scanning the tree line. About 2 hours into the hike, he stops abruptly. The video catches him standing completely still, listening. He whispers into the camera that he heard something large moving parallel to the trail, maybe 50 yards to his left, keeping pace with him. He waits, camera pointed at the trees, but sees nothing. After a few minutes of silence, he starts moving again, but faster now. His breathing is heavier, and not just from the exertion of hiking. He stops twice more over the next hour, each time filming the forest around him, trying to catch sight of whatever he thinks is following. The footage shows nothing but trees and undergrowth, but the audio picks up sounds. Branches breaking, heavy footsteps, movement that seems too large and too purposeful to be coincidence. Each time he stops, the sounds stop too. Like whatever is out there knows it's being listened for. Like it's smart enough to freeze when he does, to wait until he moves before continuing its pursuit. The tension in his voice is building. He's not joking anymore, not treating this as an interesting wildlife encounter. He's genuinely concerned now. The next video shows him coming across more tracks. These are crossing the trail directly, fresh enough that the edges are still sharp. Same pattern as the ones near his camp, but these are even larger. He measures one carefully with his hand, and it's clear the print is well over a foot long. The stride length is impossible. Whatever made these tracks was taking steps that would require legs far longer than any bear's. He films the trail in both directions, showing how the tracks come out of the forest on one side, cross the bare dirt of the path, and disappear into the undergrowth on the other side. His voice is shaking slightly now when he talks to the camera. Says he's going to set up camp early, wants to be settled somewhere defensible before dark. The search for a campsite takes longer than expected. He's looking for specific features now. Open ground where nothing can approach without being seen. Proximity to water, but not so close that the sound of the stream would mask other noises. Trees thick enough to act as barriers, but not so dense that they limit visibility. He's thinking tactically now, not like a hiker choosing a pleasant spot for the night, but like someone preparing for a potential confrontation. The video shows him checking multiple locations, rejecting them one by one for various reasons. Too exposed, too enclosed, too far from an escape route. Finally, he settles on a spot near a rocky outcrop, a small clearing with good sight lines in all directions. The evening video shows him at his second campsite, a small clearing near a rocky outcrop. He's built a larger fire than necessary, more for light than warmth. He mentions feeling watched, says he knows it sounds paranoid, but he can't shake the sensation of eyes on him. The forest around the camp is pitch black beyond the firelight, and every so often he'll turn the camera toward the darkness, the lens struggling to pick up anything in the void. Then he catches something. A sound in the audio, heavy footsteps, the crack of a branch breaking. Whatever made that sound is big. He goes silent, camera pointed at where the sound came from. For almost a minute, nothing. Then the sound of breathing. Not animal panting, not quite human either. Something between the two, deep and measured. He sits by that fire all night. The next video is time-stamped at 3:47 a.m., just his face visible in the firelight, exhaustion and fear clear in his expression. He's whispering, trying not to make noise. Says that whatever is out there has been circling his camp for hours. He's heard it multiple times, always staying just outside the reach of the firelight, always moving, never coming close enough for him to get a clear look. At one point, the camera catches a glimpse of something moving between trees. The footage is too dark and too brief to make out details, but you can see a shape, tall and upright, that definitely doesn't move like any four-legged animal. He tries to follow it with the camera, but it's gone before he can focus on it. Throughout the night, he keeps the fire burning high. The video shows him constantly adding wood, never letting the flames die down, using light as his only defense against whatever is circling in the darkness. He talks to the camera in whispers, describing what he's hearing. The footsteps are methodical, patient. They circle clockwise for a while, then switch to counterclockwise. Sometimes they get closer, close enough that he can hear breathing, then they retreat. It's like whatever is out there is studying him, learning his patterns, understanding how far it can approach before triggering a reaction. The intelligence displayed is unmistakable. This isn't random animal behavior. This is deliberate, calculated stalking. The dawn video shows him packing frantically. He's abandoning most of his gear, just stuffing essentials into his pack. Water, food, first aid kit, his phone. Everything else stays. Tent, sleeping bag, cooking equipment, all of it left behind. He's talking fast, explaining to the camera that he's getting out, heading back to the trailhead as fast as he can. Says something followed him out here, and he's not staying to find out what it is. His hands are shaking as he works, and he keeps looking over his shoulder at the tree line. The sun is barely up, just enough light to see by, and he's already moving. Day 3 is when everything falls apart. The morning videos show him hiking hard, breathing heavy, constantly checking behind him. He's filming while moving now, the camera bouncing with each step, making it hard to watch. He's following his GPS, trying to retrace his route back to the trailhead, but something's wrong. The trail doesn't look right. Markers he remembers passing aren't where they should be. Turns that should go left go right instead. He checks the GPS multiple times, shows it to the camera. The device says he's making progress, that he's moving in the right direction, but the terrain doesn't match what he hiked through 2 days ago. The next video is filmed while he's moving fast, almost jogging. He's breathing hard, muttering to himself, the camera pointed forward showing nothing but trees and more trees. Then he stops so suddenly the camera lurches. He's found something that makes no sense. Trees with branches broken at about 8 feet up, not snapped by wind or weather, but torn off deliberately. The breaks are fresh, sap still oozing. And on several tree trunks, there are marks. Deep gouges in the bark, parallel lines that could only have been made by something with claws. The marks are high up, far higher than any bear could reach. Something tall passed through here, marking territory, leaving signs of its presence. He films the marks from multiple angles, his narration barely coherent now. He's trying to understand what he's seeing, trying to fit it into some framework that makes sense. Bears don't mark trees at 8-foot height. Mountain lions don't walk upright. Humans don't have claws that can gouge wood like that. Whatever made these marks isn't something documented by science. He's starting to understand that. And that realization is almost worse than the fear, because if he's being hunted by something unknown, something that shouldn't exist, then all his wilderness experience and survival training means nothing. He examines the gouges more closely. Each one consists of 4 parallel claw marks, carved deep into the wood, removing bark and scoring the solid trunk beneath. The spacing between the marks suggests something with a hand or paw, significantly larger than a human's. He tries to fit his own fingers into the pattern and can't come close to matching the spread. The depth of the gouges indicates enormous strength. Whatever made these marks could have easily torn through his tent, his pack, him. The fact that it hasn't yet, that it's been following and watching rather than attacking, might actually be more terrifying than immediate violence would be. Late afternoon of day 3, the video shows him moving faster. He's not hiking anymore. He's running. The camera bounces wildly, showing nothing but blurred trees and ground. His breathing is ragged, panicked. In the audio, you can hear why. Behind him, getting closer, is the sound of something large crashing through the brush. Not trying to be quiet anymore, just pursuing. The pace is impossible. Whatever is chasing him is covering ground faster than he can run, and he's running hard. Then he falls. The camera tumbles, lands facing back the way he came. For 3 seconds, maybe 4, the video captures something that shouldn't exist. A creature running through the forest on 2 legs, moving with a speed that seems impossible for something that size. The image is brief and shaky, but clear enough to see the shape. Easily 7 feet tall, covered in dark fur, body proportioned wrong for any known animal. The head is the most disturbing part. Elongated snout, pointed ears, unmistakably canine, but attached to a body that's moving like a human running at full sprint. The arms are too long, hanging past where the knees would be. And the eyes, visible for just a moment in the dim light, aren't animal eyes. They're aware, intelligent, tracking him with purpose. The video cuts off. The next file shows him climbing. He's reached a rocky area, pulling himself up between boulders, trying to get to higher ground where something that large might not be able to follow. The camera work is chaotic, just glimpses of rock and sky, and his hands grasping for holds. His breathing is desperate now, all ragged gasps. He reaches a ledge maybe 15 feet up, pulls himself onto it, immediately turns the camera back down toward the base of the rocks. The creature is there, standing at the bottom, looking up at him. This is the first clear footage. The lighting is better, the camera stable enough to capture detail. The thing is massive, probably 7.5 feet tall, built powerfully through the chest and shoulders. Covered in dark brown fur that's matted and thick. The face is wrong in every way. Wolf-like snout, but the skull structure is broader, more rounded. Eyes set forward like a primate's, giving it binocular vision. depth perception, the kind of eyes that belong to a predator that hunts by sight. The mouth is partially open, showing teeth that are clearly designed for tearing meat. Long canines, sharp incisors, nothing like a human's omnivore teeth. But it's the hands that really stand out. 5 fingers, opposable thumbs, almost human in structure, but covered in fur and tipped with claws that are easily 2 inches long. The creature isn't trying to climb up to him yet, just standing there, looking up, assessing, testing different approaches. It circles the rock formation slowly, keeping its eyes on him the whole time, moving with a deliberate intelligence that's somehow more frightening than if it had just attacked immediately. It's thinking, planning, waiting for the right moment. The video runs for 8 minutes. For 8 minutes, the hiker films this thing as it paces around the base of the rocks, occasionally reaching up to test handholds, always keeping him in sight. And during those 8 minutes, the creature makes sounds. Not howls, not growls, nothing you'd expect from a wild animal. The sounds are somewhere between human speech and animal vocalization. Like it's trying to form words, but doesn't have the right vocal structure. Or like it's mimicking sounds it's heard before, testing them out, seeing if any of them get a reaction. The effect is deeply unsettling. Familiar enough to be almost understandable, alien enough to be completely wrong. At one point, the creature stops circling and stands perfectly still, staring directly at the camera. Not at the hiker, but at the phone in his hands. Like it understands what the device is, what it's for. The eye contact is maintained for almost 30 seconds, unblinking, unwavering. Then the creature tilts its head, exactly the way a curious dog might when trying to understand something. But there's nothing cute or endearing about the gesture. It's analyzing, processing, demonstrating a level of awareness that goes far beyond animal intelligence. Then it resumes circling, testing approaches, waiting. That night video is filmed from the ledge. It's completely dark now, the only light coming from his phone screen. He's whispering into the camera, trying to stay quiet. Says his battery is at 15%. Says he can hear the creature moving around below, circling, waiting. He apologizes to his family. Says he should have never come out here alone, should have stayed on the marked trails, should have turned back when he found those first tracks. He talks about the creature like it's something real, something that exists even if science doesn't recognize it. Says people need to know these things are out here, that the wilderness isn't safe the way we think it is. The battery warning appears on screen. He mentions it, says this might be his last chance to record, describes everything he's seen over the past 3 days in as much detail as he can manage. The tracks, the marks on the trees, the way the creature moves and hunts. Says it's been hurting him, driving him deeper into the forest, away from any chance of rescue. That the GPS malfunction wasn't a malfunction at all. Somehow the creature had led him in circles, kept him lost, wore him down, until he had nowhere left to run. The video ends with the battery dying mid-sentence. There are 4 more files. 3 of them are morning of day 4. The first shows him climbing down from the rocks at dawn. The creature is gone. He needs water, hasn't had any since yesterday morning. He's going to try to reach a stream he passed the day before, maybe a quarter mile from his position. The video is short, just him explaining his plan, showing the route. He looks exhausted, defeated, knows this is probably a mistake, but doesn't have any other options. His lips are cracked, voice hoarse from dehydration. He mentions that his hands are shaking, that he can barely think straight. But staying on the rocks means dying of thirst, so he has to move. The second video is him running. No explanation, just footage of forest blurring past as he moves as fast as he can. The audio is overwhelming. His breathing, footsteps crashing through brush, branches breaking. And behind him, getting closer, the same sounds but heavier, faster. The pursuit is relentless. He's not going to make it to the stream. He's not going to make it anywhere. He falls again, the camera tumbles, and for a moment, you can see the creature mid-stride. It's running on 2 legs at a speed that should be impossible for something that size. The proportions are all wrong. The gait is wrong. But the speed is terrifying. The 3rd video is 8 seconds long. The camera is on the ground, lying on its side. The lens is cracked, but still recording. The footage shows a partial view of the forest floor, leaves and dirt and rocks, and movement. The hiker's legs being dragged past the camera, disappearing into the undergrowth. The sound is indistinct. Something breathing heavily, whether it's him or the creature is impossible to tell. Then nothing. The video continues recording for a few more seconds, showing only leaves and shadows and the empty forest. Then it ends. The 4th file is corrupted. The duration shows as 0 seconds. Whatever was recorded there is lost to water damage or file corruption or deliberate deletion. We'll never know what it showed. Maybe nothing. Maybe something worse than what came before. The authorities who reviewed the footage tried to use the GPS metadata from the videos to locate where they were filmed. The coordinates placed them in a valley deep in the forest, miles from any trail. A search team was sent to the location. They found nothing at first. No campsite, no equipment, no body. But they found other things. More of those tracks in the soft ground near the stream. Trees with bark gouged off at impossible heights. And an area of disturbed ground, torn up like something had been dragged through it, with enough blood evidence to confirm what everyone already knew. DNA testing matched the blood to the missing hiker. But there wasn't much of it. Not enough for what should have been there if he died on site. The forensic analysis showed the blood had been spilled within hours of the search team's arrival, meaning whatever happened occurred recently. But the volume was wrong. A fatal injury would have produced significantly more blood loss. A non-fatal injury wouldn't explain the complete absence of the victim. The evidence pointed to something being taken, not killed on site. Something being removed from the scene by force. The area was searched more thoroughly. Dogs were brought in, trained search and rescue animals that could follow a scent trail for miles. They picked up the hiker's scent easily enough, tracked it to where the final videos were filmed. But then the trail stopped. Not gradually, not fading away the way it would if someone had simply walked out of the area. Just stopped, like he'd been picked up and carried. The dogs circled the site, confused, unable to find any continuing trail. Eventually, they picked up something else. A scent that made them whine and pull back, refusing to follow it. Their handlers had never seen the animals react that way before. Search teams expanded their grid, checking every ravine and hollow within a 5-mile radius. They found more evidence. Another campsite, one the hiker hadn't filmed, where his abandoned tent and gear had been left. Everything was still there, sleeping bag laid out, cooking equipment arranged neatly. But something had been through it. The tent had claw marks on the exterior, long scratches that went through the waterproof material. The sleeping bag had been pulled out and examined, then carefully replaced. It was like something intelligent had searched the camp, looking through the hiker's belongings, trying to understand what these objects were for. One of the searchers found something else. A tree about 300 yards from the blood evidence site had more of those claw marks, but these were different. They were arranged in patterns, groups of 4 parallel scratches at varying heights. Some at 7 feet, some at 8, some even higher. Like something had been using the tree to mark growth or territory over an extended period. The marks showed different ages, some old and weathered, some fresh. This wasn't a random bear marking. This was systematic, repeated behavior spanning months or possibly years. The case is officially still open. The hiker listed as missing, presumed deceased. But the investigation has essentially stopped. No new searches are planned. The area has been marked on internal Park Service maps as high risk, though no public warnings have been issued. Rangers are discouraged from patrolling that sector alone. Trail maintenance requests for the region are indefinitely postponed. The official explanation is budget constraints and low traffic volume. The real reason is that nobody wants to send more people into an area where something unexplained is hunting. But the people who've seen those videos know what happened. They know he was hunted, caught, and taken somewhere the search teams couldn't or wouldn't follow. They know that the creature in those videos represents something science doesn't want to acknowledge. Something that would raise too many questions, create too many problems, force too many uncomfortable admissions about how little we really understand the wilderness areas we claim to manage and protect. The footage has never been released to the public. It's classified as evidence in an ongoing investigation. The family was allowed to view some of the early videos, the ones from the first day when everything was still normal. But they weren't shown the later files. Officials said it would be too traumatic, too disturbing. What they really meant was that the footage showed things the public isn't supposed to know about. Things that live in the deep forests. Things that hunt. Things that are intelligent enough to track prey over days, to herd them away from help, to wait for the perfect moment to strike. The lead investigator who first viewed the footage requested assistance from federal wildlife authorities within hours. That call triggered something. Within a day, people arrived who wouldn't identify which agency they worked for. They took custody of the phone, made copies of all the files, and instructed local authorities that the case was now under federal jurisdiction. The local sheriff's department was told to refer all inquiries to a contact number that went to a voicemail that was never returned. The park rangers who participated in the search were interviewed separately, asked to sign non-disclosure agreements, and reminded that discussing details of an ongoing investigation was a federal offense. The person telling this story claims to have seen the videos through a source close to the investigation. Someone who made copies before the federal authorities arrived, who understood that evidence like this has a way of disappearing into classified files, never to be seen again. They described the experience of watching all 42 files as transformative, something that changed their entire understanding of wilderness areas and what might live in them. Say they couldn't sleep properly for weeks afterward, kept seeing those images every time they closed their eyes. The creature's intelligent stare, the methodical way it stalked its prey, the final moments of video showing the drag marks, and then nothing. They mentioned details from the videos that weren't in any official reports. The way the creature's fur moved in the footage, more like a living thing than simple hair. The sounds it made, which included what seemed like attempts at mimicking human speech patterns. The moment when it looked directly at the camera and seemed to understand it was being recorded, tilting its head with what looked like curiosity rather than aggression. These details paint a picture of something far more complex than a simple predator. Something that demonstrates problem-solving abilities, tool recognition, even a rudimentary understanding of human technology. The person telling this story claims to have seen the videos, won't say how, won't name sources, just says that copies exist outside the official evidence chain, that people who need to know have seen them, that the footage is real and verified. They describe watching all 42 files in one sitting, seeing the transformation from confident hiker to terrified prey to victim. Say the worst part isn't the creature itself, disturbing as it is. The worst part is how intelligent it clearly is. The way it stalked its prey systematically, learned the hiker's patterns, cut off escape routes. The way it seemed to understand it was being filmed in those final shots. The way it looked at the camera with something that wasn't quite human intelligence, but wasn't animal either. There have been other disappearances in that area since. 3 in the past year alone. All of them experienced hikers. All of them vanished without a trace. The first was a woman in her 30s, veteran of dozens of backpacking trips, who filed a route plan for a 3-day solo hike. Her vehicle was found at the trailhead 4 days later. Search teams found her first night's campsite, properly set up and secured, but no sign of her beyond that point. The second was a couple in their 50s, experienced outdoorspeople who'd been hiking together for 20 years. They sent a photo from their first day's camp via satellite messenger, smiling and happy. That was the last anyone heard from them. Their tent was found a week later, partially collapsed, claw marks on the exterior. The third disappearance happened just 2 months ago. A college student hiking alone during fall break. He'd told friends he wanted to test some new camping gear, planned to spend 3 nights in the backcountry. When he didn't return, campus security contacted the Park Service. Searchers found his pack about a mile from any trail, contents scattered. His phone was missing. No body, no blood, no obvious signs of what happened. But there were tracks near the pack. The same massive bipedal prints that had been found near the hiker's video evidence site. The search was called off after 2 days, officially due to incoming weather. Unofficially, the rangers didn't want to stay in that area after dark. The Forest Service has quietly discouraged solo hiking in that region. Trail maintenance has been suspended. Access roads have been allowed to deteriorate. They're not closing the area officially. That would require explanations they're not willing to give. They're just making it harder to get there, hoping people will choose easier trails elsewhere. Parking areas at trailheads have been reduced in size, limiting the number of vehicles that can access the area. Signage has been allowed to fade and hasn't been replaced. The official website shows those trails as temporarily closed for maintenance, with no estimated reopening date. But some people still go. Some people don't get the message or don't care. Experienced hikers who think they know better, who've done harder trails and survived worse conditions. Urban explorers looking for adventure in restricted areas. People who've read about the disappearances online and want to see the location for themselves, drawn by the mystery rather than deterred by it. And sometimes they don't come back. Sometimes their vehicles sit at the trailhead for days before anyone notices. Sometimes search teams find abandoned gear and nothing else. Sometimes there are no clues at all, just another person added to the list of those who walked into the forest and never walked out. The videos prove something lives in those forests. Something that walks upright like a man but isn't human. Something that hunts with intelligence and patience and complete confidence in its ability to catch its prey. Something that science doesn't recognize because acknowledging it would mean admitting that there are species out there we don't control, don't understand, and can't protect people from, so the footage stays locked away. The hiker stays listed as missing. The case stays open but inactive. And the creature, or others like it, continues to patrol territory it considers its own. The person telling this story won't hike alone anymore, won't go into remote wilderness areas, won't venture into forests where the trails thin out and the cell service disappears. They've seen what happens when you go too deep, stay too long, ignore the signs that you're not alone. They've seen 42 videos that document exactly how it feels to be hunted by something that shouldn't exist, the fear that builds gradually, the realization that you're being stalked, the desperate attempts to escape, the final moments when you understand that escape isn't possible. They've changed their entire approach to the outdoors now. Only hike in groups. Only go to popular, well-maintained trails. Always stay within cell phone range. Always file detailed plans with multiple people. Always carry emergency beacons. These aren't paranoid precautions anymore. They're necessary safety measures for someone who knows what's really out there. They try to convince friends to take the same precautions, but it's hard to explain without showing the videos. And the videos are locked away, classified, inaccessible to anyone without the right clearances or the right connections. They keep coming back to those final seconds of video. The hiker being dragged past the camera. The heavy breathing. The efficiency of it. Like the creature had done this before. Like this was routine. The forest has always had dangers. Bears, mountain lions, weather, terrain. But those are known dangers. Natural dangers that can be prepared for and managed. What's out there now, what those videos document, is something else. It's a predator that's learned to hunt the most dangerous prey. That's learned we're not as safe in the wilderness as we like to think. That's learned to be patient and careful and to take its prey when no one else is around to see. The official story is that the hiker got lost and died of exposure or injury, that his body was scavenged by animals, which explains why there's so little left, that the videos show normal wildlife behavior, maybe a bear or a mountain lion, distorted by fear and poor lighting, that the tracks are misidentified bear prints, the claw marks are from bears marking territory, the sounds are wind and wildlife. Everything has an explanation. Everything fits into the accepted framework of what's possible. But people who've seen those videos know different. They know what they saw. They know it was real. And they know that somewhere in those deep forests, in the places where the trails disappear and the maps end, something is hunting. Something intelligent. Something patient. Something that will wait for the next solo hiker who ventures too deep and stays too long. Something that's been there far longer than our trails and our maps, that considers those forests its territory, that sees humans as intruders who occasionally need to be reminded of their place in the food chain. The person telling the story says they can't stop thinking about it, can't stop seeing those images. The creature running on two legs, the intelligent eyes, the way it circled the rocks, testing approaches, waiting for its chance. The casual efficiency of the final moments. They wonder how many other phones are out there, wedged in rocks or buried in leaves, containing footage that will never be found. How many other hikers have documented their final days without anyone ever seeing it? How many times this has happened, and how many times it will happen again, because the truth is too disturbing to acknowledge publicly. They've tried to research the creature, looking for similar reports from other regions, other time periods. What they've found is both fascinating and disturbing. Stories going back generations from various tribes and early settlers about creatures that walk like men but aren't human. Wolf-headed beings that haunt the forests and hunt those foolish enough to venture into their domain. Most of these stories were dismissed as folklore, cultural legends passed down through oral traditions. But after seeing the videos, after watching documented proof of something that shouldn't exist, those old stories take on new significance. Perhaps the legends weren't just stories. Perhaps they were warnings, attempts by people who knew to tell those who didn't, that the deep forests hold dangers that can't be explained or understood through modern scientific frameworks. Perhaps every culture that's lived near these wilderness areas has encountered the creatures, has learned to respect the boundaries between human territory and something else's domain. And perhaps our modern arrogance, our belief that we've mapped and cataloged and understood everything, has made us forget those warnings and walk confidently into places we should fear. The wilderness isn't empty. That's what those videos prove. It's full of life we don't see, don't understand, and in some cases don't want to know about. The creature in those videos is proof that our understanding of North American ecology is incomplete, that there are predators out there that don't fit into any category science recognizes, that the forests are wilder and more dangerous than the guidebooks and trail maps suggest, and that some people who go into those forests don't come back, not because they made mistakes or took unnecessary risks, but because they encountered something that hunts humans with intelligence and skill. The phone is still in evidence storage. The videos are still classified. The hiker is still missing. And somewhere out there, in the deep forest where the search teams found those tracks and that disturbed ground and not much else, the creature continues to exist, continues to hunt, continues to wait for the next person who wanders into its territory without understanding what's really out there. The person telling the story won't ever be that person. They've seen enough. They know enough. They're staying in the world of trails and park rangers and cell phone service. They're leaving the deep forest to whatever calls it home. And they're telling this story as a warning to anyone who thinks they're safe out there alone. You're not safe. The wilderness is bigger and stranger than you know. And some things that live there see you as prey.